as we said before, Conte now has arrived to Tottenham. And
Yeah.
then before we talk about Conte, I think just quickly, can we talk about Nuno? What do you think? What went wrong for Nuno at Spurs?
Everything.
And then what's the biggest issue?
I feel a bit sorry for Nuno because he never stood a chance. He never stood a chance. He was 7th or 8th choice. He knew that. The players knew that. Harry Kane knew that. I think Harry Kane was very disappointed with the appointment. Look, it started well in terms of that they won the first 3 games and they beat Manchester City the first 3 games. But from what I'm told, that Manchester City performance was almost the players getting together to produce that, because I think the players were very hurt about some of the criticism they were receiving over the summer and at the end of last season, both from Tottenham fans and the media and pundits and people. And I've since been told that the players really pulled together for that Man City game. They wanted to send out a message, and they did that. And I thought maybe after those first 3 games, even though it wasn't very exciting and wasn't very good, maybe Nuno would sort of steer the team through this season a little bit and win games in an unspectacular and unfashionable way, but still get them through. But it quickly became apparent that the players didn't really like his training sessions. Yeah, the players didn't really like his training sessions. I think I know for a fact he's not a very good communicator. He's not a good communicator with the press. I'm told he's not a good communicator with players. He keeps himself to himself. He's a quiet guy. He's very polite and respectful, but he's not an inspiring character at all. And he just never stood a chance. And I did feel in the end, I thought the appointment was wrong. And I never really warmed to the guy because he's difficult to warm to, because like I say, when you interview him or when you talk to him, you don't get a lot back. But I also did feel sorry for him because it just became clear that he was fighting a losing battle. And to be honest, I think it probably did everybody a favour that Tottenham acted quite quickly, because I think it would have become toxic and painful. You know, that Manchester United game, when they lost to Manchester United in what proved to be Nuno's last game, it was turning pretty horrible inside the stadium. It was already very horrible on social media for him. And I think it was going to get, even if he'd have turned results around a little bit, I think it was going to get really nasty for him. So I think it did everyone a favour.
All right, yeah. Let's move on to Conte, a bit better topic for us to speak with. And yeah, I mean, before we talk about Conte at Tottenham, yeah. I believe you covered most of the games for Conte's Chelsea.
Oh yeah. I covered it very closely. Yeah, both the years. Yeah. The title-winning year and the second year when it didn't go quite so well, although he did win an FA Cup. I was probably at nearly every single one of his press conferences, most of the games, covered it very closely, covered the good times, covered the bad times with him. So I do feel like I've got a good knowledge of how he works and what might go right, and in the future what might be more of a challenge. Yeah.
So in general, in bigger picture, how do you think about Conte as a manager or as a person in general, in the big picture?
So I know him both as a coach and a person a little bit, because I've interviewed him a lot of times and I kept in touch with him after he left Chelsea, albeit in a professional perspective in terms of doing a few interviews with him. So I'm not like his friend or anything. I'm not trying to claim that, but I have remained in touch. So as a coach, I would say he's one of the best coaches of his generation. I would say he's right up there with Guardiola, Tuchel, Klopp. You know, you look at the guy's CV, you look at the impact he makes on clubs when he goes in. He will always make a team, I would say, 30% better just with his methods, without having to sign any players, without having to work too long. He's got an X factor about him. So as a coach, I rate him as one of the best. As a guy, he's a little bit misunderstood, because Conte the man is different to Conte the coach. So Conte the coach is extremely intense. He makes people work very hard. He doesn't suffer any fools. If he thinks somebody's not with him, he will probably, end their career at their club and not think too much about it. He said himself that if a player doesn't follow his ways, he will kill them. But as a man, he's different, actually. He's quite warm. He's quite generous. He's quite funny. He's genuinely, as a guy, a nice guy, which is different, I think, to the persona he has as a coach. So I would say there's two Antonio Contes. There's Antonio Conte, the coach that the Tottenham players will see, and there's Antonio Conte, that the guy who is friends and family and probably the media see a little bit more.
All right. When we talk about that aspect, especially as a manager, into Spurs at the moment, they are having quite difficult time these days for 2 or 3 years. And that, how do you believe? How do you expect Conte at Spurs? Do you think what will change? What do you think? Can he bring Spurs into European? I mean, the Champions League. How do you think?
I don't think he can do that this season. Even though I don't think Daniel Levy has given up on that, because obviously it's still early in the season. And they probably see Manchester United as being vulnerable. I don't think he can do that this season. I actually think that this is Conte's biggest ever challenge, because he's always gone into clubs when they've been struggling. You know, Juventus was struggling when he went into Juventus. He went into Chelsea when they were having a bad time, and Inter Milan hadn't won the title for, I don't know, 15, 20 years or something when he went into Inter Milan. So he's used to going into clubs struggling, but the other clubs have all been clubs who have been at the top before and who have been at a time when maybe the competition hasn't been as incredible as it might have been. So when he went into Juventus, Juventus quickly became the sort of dominant financial force in Italian football. He made them into a dominant team. He went in at a team when sort of AC Milan and Inter Milan and teams like that were on their way down a little bit, and he took full advantage, and that's not to take anything away from Conte. Chelsea was struggling a bad time, but you do have to remember that Chelsea had won the league the previous 2 seasons before. So, you know, this was a squad who knew how to win the title. And they just needed returning to that level. So the sort of tools were there for him at Chelsea already. And then Inter Milan, he went into Inter Milan when they'd had a huge injection of money and became the dominant financial force then. And again, at that point, Juventus were on their way down rather than an AC Milan and others still weren't really at that level. So I think it's different with Tottenham. They're clearly, in terms of what they will spend, not in the top financial bracket of the Premier League. Their squad is a good squad. You know, there's still players there who got to the Champions League a couple of years ago. They're still a squad who you would look at and say, yes, they are capable of getting in the Champions League. But I think at the moment they need a plan, they need a philosophy, they need a culture. They've lost all that over recent years. And I think he's going to have to give them that and try and just get them back into the Europa League to start with. If he can win a trophy, it would be amazing. Even if it's the Carabao Cup or even the Europa Conference League, it would still be amazing. You know, people would laugh at it, but Tottenham haven't won a trophy since 2008. They don't win trophies. So any trophy, however small we might think that trophy is, would be a huge success and would also help people believe in him at the club that he will eventually deliver the big prizes. So I think the short-term goal is probably Europa League and whether he can win a trophy. I think Champions League is probably for next season.